away the tail down.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the VRRC and a very, very special night. Perhaps the most hotly anticipated night of racing on the VRRC, certainly in a long, long time, because what we have for you tonight is a real treat. It's the final round of the VRRC Touring Car Championship. We are at the legendary Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and no fewer than 5 drivers have a very realistic shot at the championship, with just 8 points covering those 5 drivers at the top of the championship table, and 2 20-minute races to settle it all around one of the true great racetracks of the world. It is my pleasure to be here, Andy McEwan, alongside Jack Oliphant, as always, here in the commentary box. Jack, I'm feeling nervous. I know you were just saying you are as well. There is just something special about a proper final round, winner-takes-all championship battle.
Yeah, I don't think I've been this nervous since I think I started commentating on VRRC and did my first League of Legends finale, which I remember being quite hotly anticipated. But that was only about 3 drivers that were in it for big prizes, whereas this one, 5 drivers who are all very, good friends as well, all very sort of excited for the event. And hopefully, as soon as I saw the YouTube chat as well, as soon as we went live, there were people in the YouTube chat all with positive messages and good luck wishes all around. So, fingers crossed we have a positive outcome this evening.
Indeed so. I mean, there's a real buzz about this. Certainly in the time that I've been working with VRRC, I can't remember a championship being this close. You know, we often get to the end of the season and there are a couple of drivers mathematically in contention, but often one of those drivers has built up a bit of an advantage, or their drop score situation means that they are not under actually as much pressure as the points might suggest. But this is a genuine 5-way fight, isn't it? What happens in every single one of the 3 sessions tonight, the qualifying session and the 2 20-minute races, every little thing that happens to any one of those 5 drivers could be championship defining.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brands Hatch isn't an easy circuit either. It's not easy to pass. It's very ballsy, shall we say. But we've seen drivers try and go around the outside through hawthorns, all through the back end of the circuit, actually. And it's one of those circuits where you have to set up the move really early. So I think whoever's the most composed through race 1 will come out with a good shot in race 2, but we all know that it all hits the fan after that, doesn't it? And when race 2, when those lights go off in that reverse grid, it can all go downhill, or indeed very well for some drivers.
Indeed so. This is the journey we've been on so far. All began on the 9th of November. Seems such a long time ago, doesn't it? At Portimao, then to Paul Ricard in France, Spa in Belgium, the German double-header in the middle part of the season, the exciting street circuit at the Norris Ring, and the classic that is the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, then to Barcelona in Spain, and a week ago, Imola in Italy on the 21st of December as a little pre-Christmas treat. And now here we are tonight on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, which I'm sure is going to produce a night not to be forgot. Now, I mentioned we were at Imola a week ago. The 2 races there were very, very significant in the championship, and these were the top 3 scorers of the night. And I think, Jack, it's perhaps not unfair of me to say that I was a little bit surprised to see that Scott Bugner came out of it all as the top scorer, but this is how Scott's season has been. He has not always been, in fact you could say not often been, the absolute fastest driver on the night, but he just seems to have this knack, doesn't he, for staying out of trouble, bagging the points, and that's exactly what he did last week.
Yeah, he needed it as well. I think Scott had fallen off the championship wagon a little bit after the first 2 or 3 rounds, and he needed something to pick himself back up and be able to stay within a shout. And the last 2 rounds has been exactly that at Barcelona and Imola. And to be fair, Nürburgring wasn't too bad with them. So he's only had about 2 rounds, actually, that sort of we almost wrote him out the championship, but he has flown under the radar a little bit looking at his scores through the last 3 weeks. And obviously, at Imola, it was a big plus point for him. So he needs to follow that sign of momentum and go into Brands Hatch. How has it left the table, though? Well, we can show you now with Scott Bugner and Nicky Taylor and Eric Axelson. Well, we can tell you that Nicky Taylor is top of the pile, 228 points, and he has a pretty decent drop score as well. We won't explain all the drop scores in great detail right now, but Nicky Taylor has the strongest drop score, put it that way. Carl Felvis in second place, only 3 points behind currently. He's on 225 points. 2 points behind him is Scott Bugner with that massive 42 points takeaway from Imola. Then we have Eric Axelsen, always in and around the fight, a double champion already. He's hoping to make it 3 on the bounce here today at Brands Hatch. He's got 222. And then Josh Martin with 220. And I can tell you that Josh Martin in practice was the fastest driver out there. So really, Andy, this is anyone's game.
It really is. Out of those top 5 drivers, you cannot call it. It could swing in each race that we have tonight, and I do suspect that what happens at the start of that reverse grid race, as Jack was alluding to a moment or two ago, could be the decisive moment. For what it's worth, Joel Lask, best of the rest, 6th place in the championship. He is too far back now to win the championship. Once you do take those drop scores into the calculations, then he is too far behind Nicky Taylor, but he'll still be keen to hang on to that 6th place ahead of Elliot Dalton-Ayres, Andy Dorman, Andy Carroll, and Paolo Tempera, who are also engaged in a pretty close battle just at the back end of the top 10 in the points. What is it they're all fighting for? Well, we've been talking about this all season long. We've got some really, really good prizes on offer here at the VRRC. For 3rd place in the championship, 24-inch Aegon gaming display plus a 3rd place trophy will be on its way to the 3rd place driver. 2nd place, the championship runner-up, will receive the 27-inch gaming display courtesy of Aegon, and a slightly bigger 2nd place trophy, but the one they're all after, all of those 5 drivers that we've mentioned, and will continue to mention, I'm sure, at length through the night, are after the 34-inch curved gaming display from Aegon and the Champions Trophy. There's also the Driver of the Round award, which is decided by us, the commentary team, the whole rest of the broadcast team, and if any of you watching at home, and I know there are many of you doing that, have any opinions on who should be the Driver of the Round for this final round of the championship, then do be sure to let us know in the YouTube chat. Right, almost time for all of the talking to stop. The on-track action will be getting underway very shortly with qualifying, but before we jump into the live session, let's take a look at the circuit that will play host to this championship decider.
Hello and welcome to the final round of the Aegon by AOC Touring Car Championship. I am Lewis Edwards and I'm going to take you through the track guide now. Into Paddock Hill Bend, the car gets a bit unsettled on the entry, but we fight the oversteer and carry some decent speed through the corner. Down towards Druids, you want to keep it quite tight to the apex throughout the corner, get back to the power as early as you can and watch the track limits on the exit here. We head over to the right now to open up Graham Hill Bend. Don't use too much of the apex curb. Again, being careful of track limits on the exit now. Heading towards Surtees, really difficult to find your braking point and carry the momentum, but we do it really nicely through there. Making sure to get a good exit now, as we have quite a big straight in which the drivers can do some relaxing. And I think a slipstream may be quite key down here come qualifying. As we head now towards the fast stuff, into Hawthorne, down to 4th gear, using up all of the road and a bit of the grass on the exit. Now go to Westfield, use as much of the curb as you can on the inside to open up the radius of the corner. Now we head towards Sheen Curve. Very tricky little corner here, the car can bounce on the curb, so don't take too much. So we now head towards Stirlings. Use as much of the curb as you can, but without using the grass, and don't run too wide to go on that grass, as that will slow down your momentum. We head now down towards the final corner. We hold it in 4th and try and get back to the power as early as we dare, and using up every millimetre of road that we can, and then we stay to the right hand side for the shortest run to the finish line, and that completes a lap of Brands Hatch.
Well, the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, an absolutely glorious ribbon of tarmac in the Kent countryside. A real driver's favourite. Jack, I know you've had the pleasure of pedaling a real world car around this place. There is just something special about it. It's one of those old school circuits that I think we do so well here in the United Kingdom. It truly is one of the best.
It's utterly terrifying is what it is. It's a fantastic circuit. It's proper edge of your seat stuff. I mean, the Brands Hatch Indy is okay. That's the one most of the time you'll end up driving on if you go down the Brands Hatch for a track day or anything like that. But every so often they do open the GP circuit. And when I used to race on the British GT weekend sort of thing, it was absolutely brilliant. It was really a special occasion. And yeah, going all the way down through Hawthorne to the back end of the circuit, there are no real spectators at that end of the circuit. But that sort of makes it very intimate. It closes in around you, the circuit and the environment, and it almost makes you more focused because, as I said, You're on the edge of your seat, the edge of your tyres. You're trying to find the space to get round the person in front. I've tried a couple of interesting outside manoeuvres around Sterling's and the likes, and they never really go your way, but I'm sure drivers here at the VRRC Touring Car Trophy, they'll make it work.
I'm sure they will, and I'm sure they will put on a show for us. Josh Martin goes to the top of the time provisionally with just under 6 minutes of the qualifying session to go. Before we really get into the meat of this qualifying session, one last bit of information to give you all is regarding the ballast system. Here at the VRRC we have quite a convoluted ballast system, which I think only really Rich Hayden truly understands. But basically, the drivers are given ballast on two fronts, both their overall standings within the VRRC driver rankings, and then specifically within the championship as well. So the better you're doing in the championship, the more ballast you will carry into the next round, and that is done on a round by round, week by week basis. It all means that the man we're watching now, Nicky Taylor, may arrive here with a 3-point championship lead, but he is by far the heaviest of the championship contenders. He carries 45 kilos of success ballast, 40 kilos on board Carl Felvis's Audi, 35 apiece for Scott Bugner and Eric Axelson, who we see coming across the line 4th fastest in the session. And Josh Martin, Jack, who has just gone to the top of the times, is the lightest of the lot. He is 25 kilos lighter than championship leader Nicky Taylor, and that, we think, will give him a slight advantage over the course of the night.
Well, you were just working out the amount of fast points that you awarded for fastest lap and pole position, weren't you, Andy? And I think the answer we came to is it's 7. If you get pole position and 2 fastest laps in the 2 races, you gain 7 points that the other competitors just don't have a chance of getting. And at the moment, Josh Martin, being fastest in practice, top of the times halfway through the qualifying session, the lightest car out there, he must be pretty confident that he's potentially got 7 points in his back pocket going towards the end of this evening. And remember, he's 5th in the championship, so all of a sudden those 7 points bring him to within 1 of Nicky Taylor. Obviously, that sounds very easy. That sounds like it's a given. It's absolutely not a given. But that's this opportunity that Josh Martin has for himself.
Exactly, and actually, on that point, an impressive effort so far from Nicky Taylor, because he is 3rd fastest and only 26 thousandths of a second slower than Josh Martin, who, as we've just said, is 25 kilos lighter than him. Now, the weight won't make all of the difference. Of course, a good driver, which we know Nicky Taylor is, can make up for some of that, but Josh Martin will be feeling, I think, pretty confident coming into tonight that he is going to be rapid. But look at that, Nicky Taylor goes 2nd fastest. The top 3 in the session are covered by 2 100ths. No, they're not. The top 4 are, because Kyle Felvis goes to pole position by 7 thousandths of a second. It's Felvis on pole position, and Jack, it could not be closer.
No, this is exactly what we want, isn't it? With 3.5 minutes to go, Josh Martin on what is a very quick time. He's purpled Sector 1, and as he goes into Clark Curve, maybe we'll have another purple Sector 2. Carl Felvis currently holds the purple Sector 2 on the lap that he just posted. What can Josh Martin pull out of himself at the moment? Is he going to be able to go faster than Kyle Felvis? Comes across the line, and I don't think it is a 131.16, so he's about 10th off in that final sector, but he knows he's got the first hooked up.
Wow, oh wow. So, Kyle Felvis pole, Josh Martin 2nd, Nicky Taylor 3rd, Scott Bugner 4th, Eric Axelson 5th. They are your fantastic 5, if you like, the 5 championship contenders, and it's really Axelson who is trailing a little bit. By 0.2 of a second, he is slower than the other 4. That's not a lot, and on most weeks, that would still be good enough for the front row, probably, but it is going to be so tight here around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And that could make a big, big difference in the races, because it's not an easy place to overtake. As Jack says, you have to be brave, you have to fully commit to a move, and when you're dealing with drivers who are clearly as evenly matched as they come, those overtakes are not going to be easy. So Axelson starting from 5th, if that's where he stays, is not ideal. Josh Martin, though, is on another good lap. He's hooked up that first sector, Jack.
Yeah, he has. I think he was about a 10th up through Sector 1. A little bit of a lock there, maybe too much curb, but he's using all the track available, isn't he? He is properly pushing this car. Just seen Jordan Brennan's in the YouTube chat as well, saying it's looking like it's going to be a tight one in the championship, and asking who the favourite is to win. Well, Jordan, I'm not going to answer that question because there's 5 drivers who I couldn't really choose between any of them, and I don't think anybody in the YouTube chat would be brave enough to choose between them either. But it would be nice to have you out there. Maybe you would have made it 6 drivers gunning for the top step. Josh Martin then, Sector 1 was purple. What was his Sector 2? It's pole position time. His Sector 2 was slower. However, he's got the overall purple sector. There's still less than a 10th between 1st and 2nd. Well, 1st and 3rd, actually, Andy.
Yes, but by an enormous 77 thousandths of a second, Josh Martin to pole position, but can he stay there? A minute and a quarter to go. I noticed that he overtook on that previous lap Nicky Taylor, who was going quite slowly, so Taylor had bailed on the previous lap, perhaps in anticipation of having one more shot at this. So Josh Martin then onto the pole position. That would give him one championship point if he could stay there, but more importantly, gives him that big track position advantage going into the first race. Now, what can Nicky Taylor do? Runs a little bit wide out of Westfield corner there, two wheels on the dirt. He goes past one of his, that was either Lask or Bugner he was passing as they go towards Sheen Curve. He's got Ethan Hill right on his tail and Nicky Taylor pushing along here, but I'm not convinced that this is going to be an enormous improvement, if an improvement at all, and indeed it looks like he's bailing on the lap. He's got time for one more, Jack, but the pressure is on now for Nicky to try and get back on that front row.
Yeah, I think he actually ruined the a couple of times for the people behind him as well, actually. But he's charging it back up. He's ready and raring. He's got Andy Carroll following him. I'm not sure Andy Carroll's even going to be looked at once in Nicky Taylor's rearview mirror, because it's all about his own braking zones and it's all about his apexes and the flow that he can get around Brands Hatch. It's such a momentum circuit. You really don't want to be overtaking anybody when you want to fly. You also don't want to be missing too many apexes either. Now, I'll go and give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's V'ing the corner there, but it did look like he ran a touch wide mid-corner as he goes through Graham Hill Bend. A nice bounce to the left-hand side and running just an inch within the track limits, I would say, Graham Hill, and into Surtees. Really nice wide entry, a little bit of a puff of smoke on the left-hand side, a nice late apex as well. Try and get on the power as early as possible and as smooth as possible. Unlike Andy Carroll, just behind him, down through the dip. And he'll be able to start the back end of the GP lap with a couple of drivers getting out of his way. And most importantly there, I think Jack Smith was one of them, and Eric Axelson parked on the right-hand side of the circuit. Now, that's not where you want to go, because you don't want to spawn back to the pit. That will disqualify you from qualifying, as we now jump with Carl Felvis, who we actually haven't seen in the past 10 minutes.
No, but he at the moment would be lining up on the front row, wouldn't he? Down towards the final corners, Clearways and Clark Curve he comes. This is a really difficult end to the lap. Look at the way the track undulates over that blind crest. A front-wheel drive touring car such as that Audi wants to understeer right to the edge of the track, but Carl keeps it under control, comes across the line, and I don't think it was quite an improvement. Well, a 31.0, it was a fractional improvement, wasn't it? But he still misses out on pole by 75 thousandths of a second, so he found a couple of thousandths on that lap. What can Nicky Taylor do? He is currently third, and that is where he stays. So Josh Martin, who hasn't won a race yet all season long, is going to start from pole position for the time. So what a time to be peaking this is for Josh Martin. His first pole position, an extra championship point, which closes those top five in the championship up even further. We could not have set the scene better, could we, Jack?
Absolutely not. I think we're going to have a very nervous Josh Martin join us in the commentary box in a couple of minutes' time for our pole position interview. But before that, we have to shoot you a quick advert.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, the tension is already through the roof, and we haven't even started racing here tonight at Brands Hatch. The final qualifying session of the VRRC Touring Car Championship season sees a first pole position of the season for Josh Martin. Well, Josh joins us in the commentary box now. There are some who would probably see you as the dark horse in the championship, the outside bet, you're fifth in the championship, the last of the drivers in contention. But we've been saying all the way through the broadcast so far that actually you're in a good position. You're not that many points behind. You're carrying less ballast than the other four. Do you share our confidence that this can still be done?
Oh yeah, it's all part of the master plan being in P5 going into the last round with the lighter car. But I'm really happy to get pole. My laps weren't that great compared to what I was doing earlier. But qualifying is normally my biggest weakness, so I was really happy to finally get a pole.
And perhaps the most important circuit on the calendar to do it as well, because this is not an easy place to overtake. Not to pile any more pressure on your shoulders, I'm sure you're already feeling it, but if you can get off the line and into Paddock Hill Bend first, that is a huge advantage, because it's not going to be easy to get past you.
Yeah, yeah, I know. We were practicing last night as a group of us all on, and yeah, it's a tricky track to overtake on. Quite easy to defend, and I have obviously a little bit of advantage with the slightly lighter car, which will be quite nice with the tyre wear, because the tyre wear and the tyre temp is really hard to keep in a nice window around here on a long run.
Honestly then, because this, I mean, we're tense and we're just talking about it. I can only begin to imagine how you guys must feel. Are you keeping those nerves in check? Are you just trying to approach this like any other race meeting? How does it go?
Yeah, I've been in, not necessarily in a sim championship, but I've been in these positions plenty of times before. So yeah, just gotta try and treat it like a normal race, and we should be okay.
Okay, well, I'm not going to keep you any longer, Josh. Needless to say that you've got a lot of people cheering you on. I can see Dave is filling our YouTube chat with words of, say, encouragement. I'm sure he's wishing you on well from home, and we are all looking forward to seeing how this plays out. Best of luck.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
So, Josh Martin will start from pole position for the first time this season. Jack, you couldn't script it, could you?
No, well, I was actually taken aback when you said that he hadn't won a race all season. If you remember back to Spa, he was absolutely flying. But according to your spreadsheet of many knowledges, he got 2 second places, was it, in the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's quite incredible. We're so often used to thinking he's right up there at the sharp end. But what was it, 4 podiums as well? So to be in with a shout here, it's just pure consistency from Josh Martin, and he really has peaked at the right time. You were right.
We've had 14 races this season. He has been on the podium in only 4 of them. When you compare that to Nicky Taylor, who has as many race wins as Josh Martin has podiums this season, it goes to show that winning races, being the fastest driver, setting the timing sheets alight it's not the only way to go and win a championship. There is a lot to be said for just consistently banking the points, staying out of trouble as best you can. Josh has had a couple of slightly iffy results. In fact, in those first 2 meetings at Portimao and Paul Ricard, he had a 10th and a 16th place finish in 2 of those races. So it wasn't necessarily the start of, or didn't look like the start of a championship winning campaign, but he has turned things around, and it's just been that kind of a season, hasn't it, where it's been impossible to predict what's going to happen from one week to the next.
Well, his season has almost been like his races. He's peaking at the later stages, and that's exactly what you want to do in the races. We're quite often impressed by how well he keeps hold of the tyres and how strong he is towards the end of the race compared to some of the other competitors. I mean, we've seen the likes of Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvers. They're very exciting to watch. They're pretty much on the edge of your seat all the time, but the quicker drivers are normally Eric Axelsson and Josh Martin when it comes into the last 7 or 8 minutes. So, we might see a repeat of that today. I reckon Eric Axelsson will have his nice, normal, calm head on him. He won't be worrying too much about race number 1, just trying to get the points. And I bet he won't worry at all about the fact that he was a couple of tenths off in qualifying. He'll just be focused on trying to bank those points. And then seeing what happens in race number 2. Carl Felvers, I'm sure, will be going all guns blazing, as will Nicky Taylor, working together, I'm sure, but ultimately racing against each other, aren't they? And Scott Bugner, I'm pretty sure he's probably bribed Joel Lask into something. If Joel Lask can help in any way, he's not very quick, it seems, today, compared to the championship runners. But if he's there, I'm sure he'll do a good teammate's job.
Yeah, Bugner's another strange one. Won 2 of the first 4 races this season and hasn't visited the top step of the podium since. So it's been 10 races since he was last on the top step of the podium. Here we go, though. The final preparations being made. Even Jonathan Palmer's flown in. I can see his helicopter perched at the back of shot. No one wants to miss what is going to be a fascinating showdown in the VRRC Touring Car Championship. Pole position for on the left, Josh Martin. On the right, Kyle Felvers. Nicky Taylor, the points leader, is third. The red lights go out. Now we're away and racing for 20 minutes around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Pole position isn't always the best place to be here, but Josh Martin has nailed the start, and he will lead them to Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. Felvers slots into second. Nicky Taylor in third, side by side, though, because on the inside of him was going Scott Bugner. But a perfect start so far for Josh Martin. He converts pole position into the early race lead.
Yeah, it's exactly what Josh was hoping for, wasn't it? Carl Felvers probably won't be too disappointed either. He's got a nice, comfortable second place, while Scott Bugner managed to hold on to third ahead of Eric Axelson. Nicky Taylor was, I believe, the driver that lost out. He's now down to fifth. And is he in a bit of a fight with Andy Carroll in the background there as they're going to Surtees? A bit difficult for me to see with a bit of a pixelation on my stream. No, I don't think Andy Carroll actually is worrying. Is troubling Nicky Taylor too much. In fact, I think he's got Ethan Hill for company in 7th place. Ethan Hill, who obviously won that driver of the round last time. Well, his steering wheel did, for not disconnecting him for once and getting a podium, I might add. Ethan did drive pretty well once his actual wheel started working. But look at that, Andy. The front two are starting to get a bit of a gap, and I believe that was Scott Bugner with a bit of a wheel on the dirt out of Hawthorns.
Yeah, he is just losing touch slightly with the top 2. We're getting news from Rich Hayden that Paolo Tempera is being given a drive-through penalty. That's for a jump start, but Josh Martin absolutely nailed the start. And, well, I don't know about peaking late in the race. He is just trying to disappear up the road now. Martin already with nearly a 1-second cushion as they come back onto the Indy circuit at the end of the first lap. This is the real battle for third position. Something happened to Nicky Taylor, Paddock Hill Bend, because he went into paddock right on the rear bumper of Kyle Felvers in third position. When he came out of paddock, he was down to 5th behind both Bugner and Axelson, and Eric is on the attack, look, trying to take third place away from Scott Bugner as they turn through the right-hander at paddock. He can't quite make it stick. Andy Carroll is best of the rest in 6th position, but it's all about these top 5. They are the championship contenders, and they've already asserted themselves at the front of the pack.
Yeah, slight error there by Eric Axelson going through Paddock Hill, missing the apex just a touch, carrying a bit too much speed, had to scrub that off on exit, so any attack that he was maybe thinking about has gone by the wayside. But in practice, you rarely actually drive in the slipstream of another person, and if you're in a championship fight, I reckon you definitely don't want to be, Joel Lask going to the inside of there of Ethan Hill, isn't it? As Andy Carroll gets a bit of a breather for the time being. But yeah, in practice, you won't have been racing this close with each other for a substantial amount of time, so you're going into the corners at slightly different speeds and around Brands Hatch, we've already said, very tricky circuit. You really do have to dial in your braking zones, and if that changes slightly because you've got 2 or 3 miles an hour more going into a corner, then it can be a little bit dangerous and a little bit hard to get used to as well. I'm sure these drivers will get used to it pretty quickly.
Indeed they will. Good battle going on here. Andy Dorman up the inside of Paolo Tempera, who we know needs to head for the pit lane at the end of this lap to serve this stop-go penalty. He's also got Oliver Gibson there in the Smart-Fi car looking to the outside as they go into Stirling. Jack's already told you it doesn't work around the outside of Stirling. And Oliver Gibson realising that himself. To the end of another lap they will come then. The lead gap is already shooting out 1.2 seconds. The man on a mission actually is Scott Bugner as Tempera heads for the pit lane. Bugner is closing in on Felvers. Look, he's dragging Eric Axelson with him, but at this stage of the race, Kyle Felvers doesn't quite have the pace of the race leaders and is being caught by those behind.
Yeah, Josh Martin's doing something that he couldn't manage to do in qualifying, which is set purple sector 2s. And I know they've only had 1 flying lap, but I'm going to give it to him anyway. It's a good start, 1.5 seconds. But you're right, Kyle Felvers, I reckon Scott Bugner's Hyundai is looking a little bit bigger in his rear-view mirrors, isn't he, as they're going through the sort of front end of the circuit. I was going to say that towards the back end, but actually they're still in the first couple of corners, aren't they, really? Andy Carroll going very wide, and Joel Lask, maybe he's starting to invite himself into the party. If they start fighting, that could be music to the ears of Scott Bugner.
Yes, it could. Down towards the bottom of the hill they go. Joel Lask is really on a mission, isn't he, to try and get up there and help his teammate. Ethan Hill slips up the inside of Andy Carroll's Alfa Romeo as well. All of this happening a few seconds now, though, adrift of that podium fight up ahead of them. Andy Dorman in 9th, Oliver Gibson in 10th. There is that fight amongst the championship contenders, making its way through Sheen Curve. Lots of curb and grass taken by Nicky Taylor on corner entry and corner exit. But he will be a little bit frustrated with the way that this race has played out. He had that slender championship lead, just 3 points the advantage over Kyle Felvers. His drop score situation is decent as well, but he won't be happy staring at the rear bumpers of all 4 of his championship rivals.
No, I don't think he anticipated this going into tonight, did he? He's very, very keen to get on the front foot, let's say, is Nicky Taylor. I've commended him many a time on the VRRC. We always love watching him because he really does get his elbows out and give us something to shout about. But it seems here he's not quite able to get it together as cleanly as he would like. Maybe driving a little bit almost stressed, I would say, a little bit tense, making a few mistakes. And Eric Axelsson, actually, unusually, Andy, I would say, driving in a similar fashion. That's twice through Paddock Hill that we've seen him miss the apex.
But the pressure's on for all of them, isn't it? And we were saying, I think, off-air earlier on, that nervous drivers make for twitchy arms and twitchy legs, and you stiffen up when you're in this situation. And I know from personal experience, the worst I've ever driven on the sim is when I've been fighting for a championship, which is what Nicky Taylor is doing, but he's also fighting for 4th place here. Looks up the inside of Eric Axelsson into Hawthorne. That doesn't work. As we said earlier on, you've got to fully commit to that move, and that was more of a half look, really. So all it eventually does is loses both of them some momentum and allows Scott Bugner to pull further clear. But yeah, the worst thing you can do now is tense up, tighten up in the seat, and yet that's so easy to do, and little mistakes will start to creep in. You start to second guess absolutely everything that you're doing, and that's where I think Josh Martin is driving slightly differently than the rest of them. He's driving with a freedom that the others can't really afford. In a way, Josh has got far less to lose than the other 4. He knows he's got a fast car. He's got absolutely no pressure from behind. He's 2.2 seconds up the road from second place Kyle Felvers, and that will instantly relax a driver in the way that Felvers, Bugner, Axelsson and Taylor cannot be saying they're experiencing.
No, I was going to say one of the main things that I learned when I was racing one weekend around Donington is the fact that I went into one race and I was very tense and I was sort of wanting to put on a show, and I knew I was fast and everything like that, and I really was very tense, and you end up overdriving, going off the circuit, X, Y, Z. But then in the second race, I sort of forced myself. I was halfway through the race and I felt myself tensing up as well, shoulders really sort of hunched over and everything like that, and I just told myself to really relax them, forced myself to do it, and I almost just sort of spaced out as well. I sort of stopped concentrating as much a little bit, and all of a sudden I was starting to put in fastest laps, and I think that's what a few drivers need to think about. Nicky Taylor looking to the outside this time of Eric Axelsson into Hawthorne's, and that means Eric Axelson's starting to worry a little bit. That one little look up the inside from Nicky Taylor is enough for Eric Axelsson to stop thinking forward and start thinking backwards.
Yeah, now this is an interesting situation, isn't it? Because of the 5, Eric has been the slowest so far tonight. He was the slowest of them in qualifying. He's managed to get ahead of Nicky Taylor in the early stages, but in theory, Nicky Taylor should be the quicker of the 2. And of course, Nicky, as the championship leader, has an extra incentive here to try and make some progress, but he does have that drop score situation to fall back on. And Nicky's week so far this season was when he scored 29 points, and I'll just remind myself where that was at Spa. So 29 points is quite considerably the biggest drop score of any of the championship front runners. So in other words, even if Nicky didn't choose to race tonight, he's guaranteed a minimum of 29 points. So in some ways he can afford to take some risks. He's got that to fall back on, and he might have to take some risks if he's to get past Eric Axelsson, because Eric ain't going to make this easy for him.
Yeah, it's like going into the last game of the season in football with a massive goal difference on your side, isn't it? It's a buffer, but not one you really want to rely on, and he's not relying on it, because throwing it up the inside at Surtees is definitely a move that is capable, but can he get the drive off the circuit? Yes, he can. Eric Axelsson giving him a bit of a flash of lights, but Andy, I didn't see anything wrong with that. Great move. No,
that was a lovely clean move, and he even made sure to leave Eric room on the exit. It would have been so tempting just to lean on the Lincoln Co and squeeze it out onto the grass, but yes, Eric Axelsson loses the place. And actually, as Lewis Edwards has just suggested to us, that flash of the lights was perhaps more of a message to Nicky. Look, let's not fight. I'm not going to attack you. You're clearly quicker. Let's try and catch up to the group ahead, because look at the distance they've dropped to those top 3 now. Josh Martin is 2.4 seconds clear of Kyle Felvers. He and Scott Bugner still circulating within 6 or 7 tenths of each other, but they're 1.5 seconds clear of Nicky Taylor in 4th. Meanwhile, there's a brilliant battle going on for 6th place between Joel Lask, Andy Carroll and Ethan Hill. They have been trading places by the corner. Andy Dorman is a part of this fight too, and he goes round the outside of Ethan through clearways. That is a near impossible move to pull off, but Dorman might just do it.
Yeah, well, he's crowbarring himself a little bit of a gap there, isn't he, up the inside, but he hasn't able to do it, but he's going for a big lunge up the inside of Andy Dorman into Paddock Hill. Now, that is a move that's a little bit easier to pull off, but can you hold it? That's the question going into Druids. Up the hill they go, and is that a very slow Joel Lask? I think it is. I wonder what's happened to him.
Maybe had him through Paddock Hill Bend, but yeah, that was odd. So now Carroll goes 6th, Hill goes 7th, Dorman tries to go 8th up the inside of Joel Lask, but all of that lovely progress that Joel had been making has now, unfortunately, been undone. So Joel Lask then has fallen back behind Ethan Hill, who we believe he may have had a tangle with. So actually, Joel's slowing might have been him attempting to redress the situation, drop back in behind Ethan Hill to try and avoid a penalty. We'll try and get to the bottom of that if we can. Meanwhile, back to the pointy end, and Eric Axelsen, in fairness, is staying with Nicky Taylor here, but they're not really catching the 3 ahead yet, are they?
No, well, it's not really surprising that Eric Axelsen would be able to stay on the back of anybody on this grid, to be honest, but it's a big difference from what we saw in the first 10 minutes of this race, where we almost thought that Eric was struggling a little bit. But you can see that Nicky is still throwing everything at this particular couple of laps with 9.5 minutes to go. Really, you just want to stay within a shout, within about 10 points of a championship leader, don't you, going into race number 2, Andy, which of course is that oh so special and oh so feared reverse grid race. And around Brands Hatch, that one probably is a bit of a terrifying prospect, because you have battles in the midfield like this one that the front runners are going to have to try and dissect their way through. Andy Carroll versus Ethan Hill. Ethan Hill getting a better run off of Paddock Hill and into the second corner, into Druids. Nicely up the inside, but here comes Joel Lask back again. Remember, Joel Lask might not be fighting for a championship, but he is fighting potentially to get on the top 3 of the championship, and well, he won't be achieving it like that.
That was a big save from Joel Lask, but yeah, drops him back behind all of that group of cars now. They're in a completely different order every time we see them, aren't they? Ethan Hill now at the front of the group. Andy Carroll was leading this group half a lap ago, and now he's 3rd in it, which essentially is 8th position, but trying to take 7th place back away from Andy Dorman heading down towards Hawthorne Corner. He's got the inside line. He's going to be late on the brakes. Andy Dorman, though, we know is not afraid of getting tough around the outside. In fact, he tries to get the switchback manoeuvre. That's classic Brands Hatch Grand Prix racecraft. And he's got the inside line now for Westfield Corner. Carroll turns across his nose, though. He was turning into that corner whether Dorman was there or not. But then he runs wide, and Dorman comes back through. And then there's Gibson, and there's Joel Lask as well. This is the best race on the track. It may not have any championship implications, but this is proper touring car racing.
Yeah, we don't really want to be distracted by the championship when there is this good racing going on just behind as well. Ethan Hill, look at that, he's driven away thanks to the fact that these guys are still battling going into the final corner. Andy Dorman gets a nice bit of a breathing room, but Joel Lask versus Andy Carroll versus Oliver Gibson versus Kenny Press in probably half a lap's time is certainly one to be keeping an eye out on. Andy Carroll on the inside defending from Oliver Gibson. Can he hang it around? Can he go for the switchback? Well, I'll have to wait and see. A switchback through Paddock into and then the inside into Druids is, again, another classic Brands Hatch move, but one that Oliver Gibson isn't able to pull off as Joel Lask misses the apex.
Yep, back down towards Graham Hill Bend they go then, into this really awkward left-hander, and now Andy Dorman does what Joel Lask did a lap ago, and dips a wheel on the grass. He doesn't lose quite as much momentum this time. Oliver Gibson now dives up the inside into Surtees Corner, gets past Andy Carroll, and up onto the Grand Prix loop they go again. Do you know, I'm really getting flashbacks to my first ever visit to Brands Hatch. I was watching a certain quite popular touring car championship live for the first time at Brands, and there was an almighty championship battle going on in the final race of the season, but everyone was mesmerised by the fight for about 8th place, where Anthony Reid and Tom Chilton and Tom Onslow Cole were knocking 7 bells out of each other. This is really the same kind of thing. Fantastic racing. It might not be at the front of the field, and it might not be amongst the championship contenders, but this is exactly what we tune in for week after week here at the VRRC. If I can drag our attention briefly back to some of those at the front of the field, Nicky Taylor is now starting to catch Scott Bugner. That gap is under a second now. And look, he's bringing Axelsen with him. So Axelsen really is working well here with Nicky Taylor. And with 6 minutes to go, Jack, they might both still have half a chance of a podium.
Yeah, I'm interested to know whether Scott Bugner, whether that was a slow lap by him or a fast lap by Carl Felvers. I think it was a bit of a mix of both. Carl Felvers lapped within 15 thousandths of a second of a current leader, Josh Martin. Scott Bugner was a full half a second off of those drivers, so something went slightly wrong for him, and that's why Nicky Taylor and Eric Axelsen have managed to catch up to the back. Well, not quite the back, but within sort of earshot of Scott Bugner. Maybe a little bit of overdriving potentially for him there. Josh Martin with the fastest lap of the race as well, the only driver to venture into the 1 minute and 30 second margin, and I can tell you that actually his best lap so far in this race is slightly quicker than his pole lap that he did in qualifying, obviously. So currently 3 points plus the pole lap, that's 4 extra points going Josh Martin's way.
Well, at the moment, he's on for maximum points, took the pole position point. 25 points would go his way for a win, 3 extra points for the fastest lap, all which, by my mathematics, would give him the championship lead going into the final race of the season. Who would have thought it? Right, enough of the championship situation. Back to a bit of door banging in the midfield. Joel Lask leaning on Andy Dorman and then leans on him again going into Sheen Curve. And this time, Lask is gone for good. Off into the gravel trap he goes. And that was just a squeeze too far, I think, as they went through the dip at Dingledale. And as they arrived at Sheen, there just wasn't the space for the two of them. That is probably the hardest corner on the track, Jack, to go side by side through. And Joel Lask just discovered why.
Yeah, I tried that there as well, and it didn't end quite that poorly, but it is certainly a difficult one. You rarely come out of it unscathed, and you rarely come out of it with the result that you want, most importantly, as well. So, unfortunately, Joel Lask, who is, I wouldn't say being beaten up. Oh, is Nicky Taylor going a little bit wide there? And Eric Axelsen looking up his inside, pretty much as they were, but Eric Axelsen smelling an opportunity potentially. But yeah, a bit of a shame for Joel Lask. He went into this evening with no chance of winning the title, but certainly a chance of getting into the top 3 if all the stars aligned. I don't think they're going to, especially with a 14th place. However, that will put him really far up the order for race number 2. And only 4 minutes to go in race 1. That again could be really strong for Scott Bugner if Joel Lask finds himself up the order. Look at Eric Axelsen flying around the outside, Andy.
What? Eric Axelsen has contact on the exit. Somehow they save it, and Eric Axelsen, with the move of the season, is into 4th position. How on earth did he make that stick? Axelsen back ahead of Nicky Taylor. That was worth 2 very valuable championship points. Nicky's not going to be happy with it. Have nothing that Axelsen did wrong, but Nicky will be furious. All of that progress, they'd caught Scott Bugner. They were both in with a shot of a podium. Suddenly, it's all for nothing, because not only has Axelsen gone through, but they've dropped away from Bugner. Eric now runs wide through clearways. 2 laps to go, I reckon, as they come through this time. And the battle is heating up. Josh Martin is making this look very, very easy at the front of the field. But the Swedish assassin, you never can write him out, Jack.
The reason why I didn't expect that, I genuinely thought the stream had lagged. He was that far back and that late on the brakes that I just assumed it was a technical bug. I didn't think that he was able to brake that late into Hawthorns around the outside. That was incredible from Eric Axelsen. And as he said, Nicky won't be very pleased about it, but he's going to have to suck it up and get on with it, isn't he? Because he's got another couple of laps to try and push forward once again. But I think all that working together nonsense, well and truly out the window.
Because they've now lost all of the time they gained. It took them about 5 or 6 minutes to catch Scott Bugner the first time, and they don't have 5 or 6 minutes left. So Axelsen deciding just to go for it after Nicky made that mistake at Druids. And look, I think he has actually got a bit more pace than either Bugner or Taylor right now, because he's starting to shrink that gap again. It's down to 1 second, and he'll have certainly 1 more lap left at the end of this one, maybe 2. We'll have to keep an eye on how much time is left on the clock. They're lapping, remember, in the 1 minute 31-32 second bracket, so it's going to be touch and go, isn't it? Nicky Taylor out wide coming out of Sheen Curve. That seems to be his line that he takes through there. Doesn't seem to slow him down too much, but they're definitely, Jack, there's no debating this now, they are definitely catching Scott Bugner.
Yeah, they are, and it was about just over a second, wasn't it, when the move was made? Now within 8/10, so a full 2/10. Is that going to be enough? At the moment, it won't be. But if Scott Bugner starts to overdrive, starts to think about it too much in his rearview mirrors, then maybe an apex is going to be missed. And he was 7/10 of a second, actually, off of Eric Axelsen's lap time that time round. So, again, another lap like that, another sort of proceedings of events like we've just seen, all of a sudden Scott Bugner could be in a little bit of trouble. And all those calculations that you did about the championship order and whatnot, Andy, they could be in trouble too.
Oh, honestly, my keyboard is being worked overtime as I try to input the different formulas because it changes so frequently. But at the moment, it does look good for Josh Martin. We'll work it all out properly after race one. Scott Bugner with a very strange line out of Druids there as well. A very tight exit line, which tells me that he is struggling with front grip. I think he's struggling with a bit of wheel spin. He's really trying to keep the car tight on the exit of the corners and minimise the wheel spin on corner exit. But that will be hurting him more through the Indy section of the circuit than this faster, more flowing Grand Prix loop. Through Westfield they go. They will, by the way, have time for another lap after this one, I think, because Josh Martin, as I said, lapping in the 1 minute 31s. Well, he crossed the line with about 1 minute 33, 34 left, and I don't think he's quite got enough time in hand over Kyle Felvers to back off and make this the final lap. So I think we'll get one more lap of this. We will, again, keep an eye on that, though, as they come towards the line this time with 15 seconds on the clock. The leader's going through clearways. There is Josh Martin, and yes, I think he is going to squeeze one lap of the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit into this race. He comes across the line with 4 seconds left on the clock, and he will have to do another circuit. I don't think he'll mind too much, though. He's clearly enjoying himself and obviously in a really, really good rhythm. The battling continues behind, though, and it really is now all about 4th place.
Yeah, Josh Martin probably won't mind too much having to do yet another lap here at Brands Hatch. You're right, he's clearly enjoying himself, but he probably, looking back, would have liked this to finish one lap earlier, just because it means Nicky Taylor would then be guaranteed to be behind Eric Axelsen, and we know that that would be the preference for Josh Martin, of course. It'd be the preference for pretty much all the championship contenders, actually, because Nicky is the driver to beat, of course. A little bit of a lock-up there by Scott Bugner. Now, they were within about 0.6 of a second of Scott Bugner. That's dropped to about 9.5, or even a second, actually, behind the 3rd place man now. So I think Eric Axelsen, again, is more focused on holding on to his 4th place than he is attacking the podium.
And they both keep making mistakes. You can see there, Axelsen not really hitting the apex through Westfield. They've both been locking up a bit through some of the tighter corners on the Indy Loop. And Nicky Taylor, with a really strong run through Westfield, might not have given up yet on his chances of getting this 4th place back. You can't really overtake into Sheen Curve, but look at the extra corner speed that he takes right up over the inside curve. Does he jinx the inside into Sterling's? That's a low percentage move, and he decides better of it. Through the bank left-hander they go. There is one more corner to go in the penultimate round of the VRRC Touring Car Championship. From his first pole position of the season, though, it is now a first race win, and what a time to do it for Josh Martin, who wins race 1 here at Brands Hatch. Kyle Felvers a solid, if unspectacular, 2nd. Scott Bugner 3rd, and Axelsen gets the better of Nicky Taylor. The championship leader coming into the race is only 5th. At the end of it, Ethan Hill, best of the rest, in 6th, but nearly 10 seconds behind. Andy Dorman right behind him in 7th, ahead of Oliver Gibson. Then Andy Carroll and Kenny Press to round out the top 10. Alok Iyengar comes through in 11th, ahead of Paul Laramie, and Joel Lass will be starting right towards the front of the field. He'll be 4th on the grid, I reckon, for that 2nd race. And remember, he is teammate to championship contender Scott Bugner. That could be a storyline to follow going into that final 20-minute race of the season. Tempera, after his drive-through penalty, comes through in 14th. John Jones and Stuart Vickers will be the last of the finishers. Well, that was a great appetizer, I think, Jack, for what is going to be a very tasty main course in that reversed grid race. I'm still none the wiser as to who the champion is going to be, and I can absolutely assure you the nerves will be through the roofs for all 5 of our championship contenders.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. The adrenaline will start to wear off a little bit as we show a great quick advert, but I'm sure they'll start to build up as we do the driver podium interviews in a couple of minutes' time.
Welcome back to Brands Hatch and the VRRC Touring Car Championship. The penultimate round of the championship has just been completed, and we still have 5 contenders for the title with one 20-minute race to go. We're going to speak to 3 of those contenders now because they filled out the podium places. I'm going to start with our first-time winner for the season, Josh Martin. Josh, what a time to do it. You got your first pole position earlier on, converted it into a dominant lights to flag victory. That couldn't have gone much better, could it?
No, that was that went surprisingly quite well, other than one little oopsie I had in the middle of the race. The start, I had a really good start, and yeah, it's probably the least exciting VRRC race I've ever had, because I'm normally like right in the middle of all the action. But it made a nice change. I did almost crash about halfway through. I got the gap to about 2.5 seconds. Like, oh, I'll chill out a little bit, and chilled out a bit too much and dropped my wheels on the grass on the entry to the second fast right-hander around the back of the track. And yeah, I was completely sideways, lost a huge chunk of time.
Well, we didn't see that, but that sounds like a really nervy moment, especially with what's on the line. You've done, in a way, the easy bit now, there, haven't you? Starting from pole, winning that first race. As you said, it was a pretty quiet and uneventful race. But now, race 2, you're starting right at the back of the field. You've got all of those championship contenders directly ahead of you. I mean, how do you even begin to approach a race like this, mentally speaking? Because there's so much now that's out of your hands.
I got a feeling this one isn't going to be quite as easy as the last one. I guess it's a little bit more what I'm used to with sim racing actually being more on the pack. So yeah, we'll see. Just gotta keep a damage-free, clean car at the start. I think that's going to be the most important part of this race.
Absolutely. I think that sounds like a plan, Josh. We'll let you go and make your final preparations for that all-important race. But whatever happens, you've done a superb job, all 5 of you, and a big congratulations on that victory.
Cheers.
Well, Josh Martin with the race win, we think provisionally taking the championship lead going into that final race of the season. Jack, though, can speak now to the man who had a pretty equally quiet run, I think, to second place.
Yeah, and I'm going to make it quick, Kyle, because I've just been notified that you might need a quick pit stop yourself, actually. So, a big congratulations on the second place. It was a bit of a boring race from your perspective, though, surely.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think, first lap, my focus was definitely not on Josh. It was completely towards Nicky. I wanted to cover him off, and that worked brilliantly. And then Josh ran away, and I was trying to save my tyres slightly and then sort of use it towards the end.
Are you in contact with Nicky, or have you gone your separate ways almost for this evening?
No, we're all in our Google Meet having a chat mid race. Tensions are high, but you know we're all still together.
I was going to say, wasn't that just a case then of you just getting done exactly what you needed to get done for race number 1 then, and obviously all the fighting talk sort of happens in race 2?
Yeah, definitely. Race 2 is the biggest race that you have to step up for. So,
well, fantastic. I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you go off, do your pit stop. That'll relax you for race number 2, I'm sure. Good luck, Kyle, and we might be speaking to you afterwards.
He's already gone. Carl Pelvis then second place in that race. Third place in the race with a slightly more interesting time. It was Scott Bugner, but Scott, really most of your action was on the very first lap. You managed to make some good progress, crucially getting past Nicky Taylor. Talk us through how that happened.
Yeah, I saw Kyle come across it, and I think Nicky just had to lift slightly, and I saw a gap, and I thought, well, I've got to go for it. This is the last round, so I went for it, and it paid off. And bit of rubbing on the exit, but yeah, we got through, and then Eric managed to follow me through, and I thought, right, hopefully you two battle. And then I was just starting to catch Kyle in the first half of the race, and I just dropped the wheel like Josh did, and it just lost me a bit of patience there, and I thought, no, just sit back now and relax.
Which you did, and you brought her home in third position. A really solid result, and kind of sums up your season, doesn't it? You've just been sort of consistently banking those podiums, banking those top 5s, and banking the points.
Absolutely, you know, and I don't know what this race is going to bring. I can't even say what is going to happen, but hopefully get through the first couple of laps and just sort of pick them off, and hopefully my teammate can come into play who's at the other end of the grid.
Absolutely, he's going to be starting towards the front, and that has been noted by us, believe me. We'll be keeping a close eye on exactly how this plays out over the course of the next 20 minutes. Scott, best of luck for that final race.
Thank you very much.
Well then, we've heard from 3 of our championship contenders. We've been doing some very quick maths. Well, I have via my spreadsheet, which I really hope I've formatted right at the moment, provisionally, and not just because we might end up with some post-event penalties, but also because my maths is shocking. I think that Josh Martin is on 249 points, Kyle Felvers 247, Nicky Taylor 244, Scott Bugner 243, and Eric Axelson 240. So, Jack, we came into tonight with 8 points covering the top 5. It's pretty much settled, isn't it now? 9 points covering them. This is going to be fairly dull and uneventful.
Yeah, I might just let you cover this one yourself, to be honest. No, I'm going to trust your maths, mainly because I don't have any other choice. I'm not going to work them out myself, because I definitely would get it wrong. So, yeah, I think it's going to be very, very interesting. It's almost Lewis Edwards almost saying that it might just be down to who wins it on the road. It could be that close. But of course, there is fastest laps to be taken into account. Now, that could be scored by none of our top 5. Yeah. All of a sudden, you have to write it off then, don't you? But that is 3 vital points in the grand scheme of things. It's one of the biggest reasons why Josh Martin is right up there at the tippy top right now. So, yeah, looking forward to this one.
Okay, then. Place your bets, everyone. 5 drivers, 20 minutes, full reversed grid. John Jones is on pole position alongside Stuart Vickers on row 1, but all of the action of significance is going to be happening some way behind them. The red lights are on for the final time this season. We're away and racing here in the VRRC, and John Jones will try to convert pole position into the race lead at paddock, which it looks like he will do, but keep your eye to the title contenders further. Jones leads them, Tempera second, Joel Last going up the inside for third, and he will succeed in getting that position. Nicky Taylor was sideways in the middle of the pack, but they all emerge the other side of Paddock Hill Bend in one piece through the right-hander at Druids, and Joel Last wants to get to the front of the field so that he can have control of the race and perhaps help his teammate Scott Bugner get the championship. Up the inside of Paolo Tempera he goes. He's into second. Tempera, we're hearing, has had another star penalty, and there's a spin in the background, Jack.
There is, and Eric Axelson, I believe, is one of them. He's in 14th place. I think, actually, Josh Martin is also flitting up and down on the left-hand side of our screen. Carl Felvers. And I think they're just about, our main protagonists have just about survived the melee. I think Oliver Gibson, Stuart Vickers, and Ethan Hill, actually, were the 3 drivers that really suffered. But Eric Axelson is still in with a shout. There is Oliver Gibson and Stuart Vickers are right at the rear end of the field as Paolo Tempera goes back up the inside of Joel Last goes at the inside of John Jones, I believe, going other 3 wide in the GP, Luke. There's Joel Last going through on the outside. That could cause a massive pile-up, Andy, as Paolo Tempera comes back across, hits John Jones, hits somebody else, Alok Iyengar. All of a sudden, they all have to stage exit right and left. Josh Martin survives on the left-hand side. That's Andy Dorman in the mirrors. And I think just about Nicky Taylor, Carl Felvers, Scott Bugner, and Eric Axelson all get through as well.
Scott Bugner is 4th, though. Scott Bugner has come from towards the back of the grid into 4th and is challenging Alok Iyengar for 3rd. Scott has done this so many times this season. He was ahead of all of that drama. He's built a big cushion on his championship rivals, and he's going for a podium place at the end of lap number 1. Towards Paddock Hill Bend they go. Scott is on the podium. Remember, his teammate is leading the race. This could very easily become a race victory for Scott Bugner. How significant could that be in the championship? However, Nicky Taylor, Carl Felvers, Josh Martin, Eric Axelson are not that many places behind. Remember, by my reckoning, Bugner is 6 points off the championship lead coming into this race. He needs every point that he can get.
Yeah, Alok Iyengar, not an easy driver to pass. Kenny Press, very keen and very eager on a reverse grid race. And there is Alok Iyengar being a very easy person to pass. Well, that does make it a little bit boring, doesn't it, Alok? Come on, man. Joel Last, now he'll be the easiest driver to pass for Scott Bugner. For the rest of the field, we're going to have a headache, I reckon. Josh Martin getting through on Carl Felvers, we saw at Druids then. That'll help the current championship leader. Just that little bit extra. Carl Felvers currently in 2nd place, we believe. He was 2nd place into this evening. We think he's the only driver that hasn't changed the position, actually, in the championship after that first race. He's only 2 or 3 points behind Josh Martin. Well, he's 1 position behind now, but he's got his teammate Nicky Taylor just up ahead.
Talk about between a rock and a hard place here for Josh Martin. I think he's definitely got the pace. He's the lightest car out of the championship contenders. That will really benefit him when it comes to overtaking people in this race. But he's got Nicky Taylor ahead of him, one of the feistiest drivers on the track, and Kyle Felvers behind him, one of the other feistiest drivers on the track. They are both teammates. They are both fighting for the championship. And Josh Martin has to try and get himself past both of them. He's cleared Felvis already. And now he moves up to attack Nicky Taylor to the outside line into Paddock Hill Bend. He doesn't do it on the way in, but watch for that. The Hill Bend switchback, clobbers the curb, runs out wide. Nicky Taylor immediately moves to the right to cover. So Josh Martin sends it round the outside. Let's hope they leave each other room. Door to door, they go through the right-hander, and Nicky Taylor, for now, hangs on.
Scott Bugner cannot believe his luck, can he, as they're going towards Graham Hill Bend. He's got Kenny Press within firing distance now on this lap. He's got his teammate in the race lead, and he's got his championship rivals deciding to fall over each other behind him as well, giving him a lovely bit of breathing space. This is all looking good for Scott Bugner. We won't bother doing the maths until we know that he's got past Kenny Press, and then we'll probably just assume that he'll get past Joel Lask, as long as Joel Lask doesn't stab him in the back somewhat, and then we'll start to figure it all out as Kenny Press misses the apex of Hawthorns. And I tell you what, I don't want to say jumping out the way, Andy, but that looked a bit easy.
He did a bit, didn't he? But then, I mean, you don't want to be the guy that takes out a championship contender, do you? So I fully understand why some of them are rather rolling over and letting them through. And honestly, it's not even diminishing the excitement of the race too much, because we've still got at least 4 of the title contenders pretty much on top of each other anyway. And any single overtake could make all the difference in the world. That nearly made all the difference in the world as well. Kenny Press losing it right in front of Nicky Taylor, bounces off the barriers, but thankfully and miraculously, they all avoid him.
I'll tell you what, I almost jumped out of my Udi then. That was quite terrifying. I thought, not because I thought he was going to make contact with Josh Martin, Carl Felvis. I thought Eric Axelson's not far behind, but big enough gap that he could catapult out of a wall and back across the track and wipe Eric Axelson out, who doesn't seem to have been able to do that much about this race, has he? We thought maybe he'd be a little bit quicker, especially with these 3 fighting on our screens right now. And I'd say Scott Bugner, well, I don't know about you, Andy, though. He's not really pulling away all of a sudden. It looked like a much bigger gap before Kenny Press fired himself off. I think these 3 are pulling him back.
As it stands, I reckon Bugner is 5 points adrift of Josh Martin, and Martin would be the championship leader, Bugner second, but it's going to change with every overtake that we see between now and the flag, and Scott Bugner does need the win, and he might need some help from his teammates, and honestly, he needs it now. Now, if I were in control of this team, which I'm not, I must stress, I would be getting Lask to drop back, fall behind Bugner, slot into second place before that gap is no longer there, because if Nicky Taylor arrives on the bumper of Scott Bugner, they've lost their chance to do that, because they can't guarantee that Lask would slot into second. There's every chance that he'd get freight trained and they'd all go through. So for Scott Bugner to win this championship, he needs the help of Joel Lask, and he needs it now. But we don't know for a fact whether there are any team orders at that team. There haven't been all season long. There's nothing to say that we should assume they'll be using them in this final race.
Yeah, and a big reason for that is the difference, that the reason why we would think that he wants Scott Bugner to be in the lead, Joel has to be second, is because the difference between second and third, i.e. Bugner to Taylor right now, is 2 points in finishing order. Whereas if Scott Bugner won and then back to second, that's 3 points. So even if Joel Lask couldn't hold on to second place and Nicky came second, it would give Scott Bugner an extra point, a 3 points almost, that his teammate is currently hogging. If it did end up with Joel Lask in second place, Scott Bugner in first, and Nicky Taylor in third, that would be the 5 point difference that I'm sure Scott will probably be looking for. So it's getting very, very difficult to figure it out in your head.
Joel Lask has just gone off. Joel Lask just got a wheel on the grass into Surtees. That looked like a genuine mistake, but it's actually going to work out perfectly for Bugner. Scott Bugner to the race lead, and that is worth, as Jack was just outlining, an extra 3 points. What can Josh Martin do? He is on the attack. Looks to the outside of Nicky Taylor, down towards Hawthorn Corner. Just enough space is left, and Josh Martin stays fourth. Gets the switch back, though. He's up the inside into Westfield Corner. They almost bang doors, and Josh Martin onto the podium. Is he? No, not quite. Nicky Taylor just hanging on around the outside. And if Josh has got any sense, he'll back out of that, which he does. He stays in fourth position, but Bugner back to the lead now. I think, Jack, that if Josh Martin were to lose one more place, he would be tied with Bugner, who, as we know, has more race wins. So this could be absolutely crucial. If Felvis buys into this battle, that could change the course of the championship completely.
Yeah, but then we can't write out Carl Felvis, who would be the one that would overtake Josh Martin, of course. How many points would he gain on Scott Bugner, and how oh my days. Glad you're doing the calculations, because I'll just cover the race as Josh Martin goes to the outside of Paddock Hill Bend. It's a brave move. He's going to try to get that cutback, I'm guessing, for Druid. Gets a nice tight line out of it. But look at Carl Felvis. He uses all the road as Nicky Taylor dives up the inside through Druids. Josh Martin being hung around the outside. Can Nicky Taylor drag his teammates back through with him to take third and fourth for HFT, with Josh Martin squandering himself down in 5th position? No, not quite yet. Eric Axelsson still not able to catch up with these drivers. It is not like he has to defend from behind either. Oliver Gibson is absolutely nowhere near quick enough to catch up to these guys. As Scott Bugner and Joel Lask, look at that. I wouldn't be surprised if they start bump drafting each other. Down the dip is Josh Martin to the outside of Hawthorns. That's going to be very interesting as Nicky Taylor looked to try and cut that off and cut across the nose. Josh Martin, Carl Felvis. This is exactly what Carl Felvis learned in the previous race. And Josh Martin holds on to the position as they go through Westfield. They're going to invent a whole new line, a whole new track. But I think Carl Felvis may have had this move done. No, not quite. Going in towards Sheen Curve. I don't know how excited I can get for this one, to be honest. It's Kyle again, still round the outside of Sheen, into Sterling's for the inside. And I think Carl Felvis, I tell you what, if he wins the championship with this, Josh Martin gets a bit of a bump through the door from Carl Felvis. Andy, I don't know how to cover it.
Oh, Felvis is through though. Felvis has gone through, but you're right. There was definitely contact on the apex of Sterling's corner. So Josh Martin is down into 5th position, and there is the prospect of him losing more places because Axelsson and Oliver Gibson are both closing in. Here comes Josh Martin. He's got to go for this. We think he needs one more position here, and he's on the outside of Carl Felvis into Paddock Hill Bend. Felvis sends it into the corner. Neither of them really taking the proper racing line, but Martin's got the run up the hill. He's on the inside into Druids, and in fairness there, Felvis saw him coming, gives in the boot on the apex, but it doesn't matter. Josh Martin is back into 4th place, and now Eric Axelsson's on the scene as well.
Yeah, now we know Eric has got decent pace. We know he enjoys racing with Carl Felvis and Josh Martin as well, but does he have enough pace to really upset them now? Josh Martin doing exactly what it needed to and getting that move done quickly. But look at Nicky Taylor. He's disappeared. It's now a 2-second gap between himself and the 4th place man who he was fighting just a couple of laps ago. His HFT teammate has now got a headache from not only in front but behind as well. Eric Axelsson not to be losing this one by lying down. He's a double champion at VRRC and MX5s and a previous touring car champion as well. He's going to certainly be coming back at strong, I'm sure, towards the end of this race.
Towards Sheen Curve, we're only halfway through. We have got to pace ourselves here, haven't we? 9.5 minutes to go. Dare I say it, things settling down ever so slightly. Scott Bugner and Joel Lask disappearing up the road, or trying to, but actually Nicky Taylor is lapping a bit quicker than them right now. There are the 3 Hyundais at the front of the field. Then it's the Lincoln Co of Josh Martin, the Audi of Carl Felvis. The next of the Lincoln Co's is Eric Axelsson, and Oliver Gibson, in fairness, is tagging along with this group, benefiting no doubt from the fact that they're holding each other up. But this is going to be a quick lap, I reckon, from Nicky Taylor. Is it quick enough for the fastest lap? It's a 1:31.43, fractionally slower than Josh Martin, about a 10th of a second slower than Josh Martin's fastest lap. So I think we're now at the point of the race, Jack, where in theory the lap times are as quick as they're going to get. The tyre wear now starting to take hold, and so possibly those 3 bonus points for Martin could be safe.
Yeah, well, it's probably the fastest part of the race, purely because they're not trying to overtake each other or hit 7 bells out of each other as well, aren't they? It's this is the opportunity to really get your head down and try and secure that. But 3 points for fastest lap, that is pretty massive, isn't it, Andy? It's not like it's not worth trying for. If you get an opportunity, you really do need to hook a lap together, because it can be vitally important when it comes to the checkered flag. And if Josh Martin is able to secure that, that's effectively like him finishing ahead of Nicky Taylor and on the podium by the amount of points that he'll gain.
Yeah, absolutely. The calculations continue here, and will continue to continue through the final 8 minutes of the race. Down through Dingledale, up towards Sheen Curve. A wheel dipped on the grass there for Felvis as he turns through the right-hander at Sheen. But now it looks like Josh Martin is just starting to regroup. He had that little banging match with Kyle Felvis. He's getting away from Kyle and closing in on Nicky Taylor. Now, we don't even know exactly how the points are going to work out here. It's that tight. I'm absolutely certain that the drivers are not calculating it that accurately from the driving seats. So I think Josh's plan here has to be to continue attacking. That has worked well for him so far. If he can get ahead of Nicky Taylor, then that further cements his position at the top of the championship table. But it will be interesting to see what he does if and when he catches Nicky.
Yeah, Josh Martin just got fastest lap. He beat his own fastest lap by about 2.5 tenths, actually, or a tenth and a half maybe, with a 31.1. So about 2 or 3 tenths off of what he did in race number 1, but it might be good enough that to secure him those 3 points. You could tell that it was going to be quick though, couldn't you? Because look at the gap that he's pulled on Kyle Felvers and the amount that he's gained on Nicky Taylor on that previous lap. It was a full 9/10 of a second that Josh was quicker than Nicky Taylor. And here comes Eric Axelsen.
Yeah, Axelsen suddenly looking quite a bit quicker than Kyle Felvers, whose pace has really dropped off a bit of a cliff, hasn't it? Axelsen is up the inside of him into Hawthorne Corner, and how much of a nuisance is Kyle going to make of himself here? Well, he's hanging tough around the outside, but Axelsen's got that inside line for Westfield Corner, and I think we'll lever him aside. Yes, he does. Oh, there's a bit of a rub down on the apex, though. Neither of them really leaving quite enough space for the other, but Axelsen survives it and moves into 5th position, so an extra couple of championship points for him. But really, for Eric to have any chance of the championship, he needs to win this race, and that, as the laps go by, Jack, is looking less and less likely to happen.
It is, but he can certainly upset a few drivers around him, which is exactly what he's trying to do, isn't he? Now, Josh Martin has pulled onto the back of Nicky Taylor now. I don't think there's much denying it as they go through the final corner. It's probably going to be a couple of more corners until there's a potential move on the cards and we start to get all excited again. And I start to get all high-pitched and hyperventilate once more. Scott Bugner and Joel Last, well, they're doing exactly what we always thought they were going to do, which is work together and try and pull away. Does Josh Martin, though, Andy, go for this? Or does he figure out the fact that actually they're catching up to Joel Lask?
Well, is that even a good thing, though? Because Joel Lask is in it for his teammate, in theory. They don't really want to catch him, do they? Here comes Kyle Felvers up the inside of Axelsen again in this ongoing battle for 5th position. You're right, though. This could actually cost Kyle Felvers a position or two in the championship. It could cost him 3rd place as things stand, and Axelsen is not going to let him have this position without a fight. He's back up the inside through Surtees, and they will run door to door. No, they won't quite. Felvers actually drags the Audi back ahead. Andy Carroll is catching that group too. But back to your Lask, Taylor, Martin question, the last thing actually that Josh Martin wants here is to catch Joel Lask, because if Joel does come over all Matt Neely and Defendy, then he could really make life difficult for Josh and for Nicky to try and help Scott Bugner. Remember, if Josh loses too many more places, then that could give Bugner the championship. Josh, we think, is okay where he is in 4th place, but this is all yet to be officially confirmed. So I don't know what I'd be doing. If I were Josh, I think I'd be quite content to stay where I was, as long as I was certain that that was enough.
I was going to say it would be really useful if Josh Martin had a teammate, or even a team principal style spotter or something that was working out. I wonder if Dave is in the YouTube chat. I wonder if he's on the phone to Josh Martin, telling him how many points there is X, Y, and Z, because that would be pretty vital information if I was Josh Martin right now, because he's going for a move on Nicky Taylor, who almost looked like he was going to defend, then thought better of it, and then thought, oh god, no, I have got to defend going into Druid. So I think maybe he was just taking a more of an arrowed V style line. As that was Joel Lask again hitting the curb, and I think hitting the grass before he went into the corner. I don't think this race isn't done. With 4 minutes to go, not only do we have to focus on Eric Axelsen and Kyle Felvers, but we also have to focus on Nicky Taylor, Josh Martin, and this is the reason why we have to think about Eric and Kyle, is because they're not done bashing into each other.
As entertaining as this is, they have dropped nearly 5 seconds now, though, to Taylor and Martin. So actually, the prospect of either Nicky or Josh losing any more places is pretty slim, as long as this lot keep on tripping over each other. There are only 3.5 minutes to go as well, so we're getting into the closing stages here. Kyle Felvers, we believe, has been given a final warning for track limits exiting Graham Hill Bend, where we've seen a few drivers dipping wheels onto the grass on corner exit. But yes, this battle, as entertaining as it is, I don't think is going to have that much championship significance, really, because they just don't have the time to catch the cars ahead. Oliver Gibson, so tempted, isn't he, to get involved in this fight as well, but it is a tricky situation when you're racing against drivers who you know are going for the championship. That is not a nice place to be. Meanwhile, Jack, we've had a change for 3rd.
We have indeed, and I'm not entirely sure how, because it must have been something pretty big from Nicky Taylor's perspective. Whether he maybe dropped a wheel off onto the grass as he was going into a corner, that's what we just saw from Kyle Felvers. Maybe it's an HFT disease going into Sterling, not entirely sure, but, Sheen, I should say. But yeah, Nicky Taylor dropped down to 4th. That, in our calculations, I wouldn't say gift it to Josh Martin, because that would be probably a little bit disrespectful of how hard he's had to fight for this particular evening, but it does give him an advantage, shall we say.
Yeah, but what he doesn't need to do now is get super involved in a all-out war with Joel Lask for second place. He would like to get past Joel, of course he would, but it's not essential that he gets past Joel as far as we're aware on the points. The only other thing that could have changed this would be if Nicky Taylor were to have to utilise his drop score tonight. We believe that all of our Championship 5 drivers are currently in positions where they would at least match their previous drop score, so we don't have to worry too much about that. It does look as though this is all falling into the lap of Josh Martin as long as he doesn't do anything silly over these final couple of laps. They're going to come through this time to, I believe, begin the penultimate lap of the race. He's clearly quicker than Lask. If this was any other race of the season, Jack, he'd be looking up the inside into every corner, but I really don't think that's the right thing to do.
No, but the longer he sort of slows down just a touch, because Joel Lask will be thinking, right, I need to do a really good job here for my teammates, and he won't be thinking about going fast at all. He will literally just be thinking about keeping Josh Martin behind him, and he probably won't be thinking, he probably won't guess that Josh Martin just wants to stay where he is and stay ahead of Nicky Taylor and be quite happy here. So it's almost that sort of thinking process from Joel Lask will actually slow them up whether Josh Martin wants to attack or not. And I reckon, the gap is to the leader now 2.5 seconds. I'm pretty sure that's increased since Josh Martin's got onto the back of Mr. Lask. On the previous lap, they were about 0.2 slower, but I reckon on this lap, they're going to be about a second slower, because look how much Lask is missing the apex and how much Scott Bugner is dropping them.
So nervy times here for Josh Martin. He's keeping his distance, I think, isn't he? I don't think he's really giving this absolutely everything that he's got. We may be on the final lap, actually. I didn't quite spot how long was left on the clock when they crossed the line, but Lewis Edwards is telling us it may be the final lap. It will be very close, and Scott Bugner ought to make sure that the checkered flag definitely has come out at the end of this lap, but not back off a little bit too soon. Through Sheen Curve they go, though. 20 seconds left on the clock, and, well, Josh Martin, we think, might be about to do enough to win the championship. We're going to wait until we get the officially updated points on the website before we crown any champions, but whatever happens, this has been by far the best performance of Josh Martin's season. Scott Bugner, in fairness to him, has thrown everything that he had at this. What a brilliant start to the race he had to move his way through from the high teens into the top 3 by the end of lap 1, and he will round the season out with a victory here at Brands Hatch. The checkered flag is out. Joel Lask is second, Josh Martin in third, ahead of Nicky Taylor fourth. Eric Axelson gets the better of Kyle Felvers, but only just in their private battle for 5th position, ahead of Oliver Gibson, Andy Carroll, Ethan Hill and Paolo Tempera, despite, we believe, another drive-through is going to come home inside of the top 10. Alok Iyengar, the only non-finisher, having pulled out of the way randomly in the early stage of the race. But that was a suitably dramatic, tense and unpredictable final race of the season, and we will find out momentarily exactly what it means for the championship. The last couple of drivers coming across the line, whilst we tot up the final championship points, whilst we let the website tot up the final championship points, we are going to take a very short break, but do not go anywhere. We'll have official confirmation of the final championship standings in just a few minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the VRRC, where, let me tell you, I've not felt tension like this for a long, long time. We've got a group of drivers assembled in the commentary box who finished on the podium in that race, and they've all got the same question we have. Who has won the championship? We've done our maths. Rich Hayden and Lewis Edwards have done theirs as well, but we are waiting for official confirmation of who the champion is in this, what has been an incredible VRRC Touring Car Championship campaign. Before we do start chatting to drivers, and just to try and pad a little bit longer, Jack, before the website updates, your thoughts on what was just an incredible final race?
Yeah, it was mental, wasn't it? But what I really liked as well is I sort of noted it as the race 2 was finishing, that the top 5 in the championship were also the top 5 in race number 1. And the top 6 in the championship, going into tonight, I should prelude, were the top 6 drivers at the end of race number 2 as well. So it really does show that the best of the best really did come to the front on this finale at Brands Hatch, which is exactly what you want. You don't want someone well off the pace and isn't able to compete, or you don't want people ended up in crashes or anything like that. So it really wills sort of down to who finished best on the road. And the website has updated, Andy. I don't know if you need to refresh it, but we do have a champion, still provisional, but we think it's pretty, I don't think there's going to be many protests. So we do have a champion.
Well, there are two shocking things to come out of tonight. Number one is I got my maths right. There is a first time for everything after all. The other shocking thing is that the driver who came into the final round, 5th in the championship, has just provisionally wrapped the title up. It is Josh Martin on 272 points, who clinches it by 4 over Scott Bugner second, Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvers joint third, but Nicky had more race wins, so he will take that on countback, with Eric Axelsen in 5th position. Those top 5 covered by 16 points at the end of a thrilling championship campaign. We are going to start, though, by chatting to our race winner, because it was a valiant last-ditch effort for that championship for Scott Bugner. Scott, not quite enough, ultimately, for the title, but I think it's fair to say you gave that your all.
Not done any more, to be fair. You know, I don't know, there was cars going everywhere, absolutely everywhere, and I just sort of followed the car in front and managed to get through. And I don't know if Joel did it deliberately, but he cocked a bit of a slide going into 30s, and sort of I got through, and then he was pushing me, to be fair. He was looking for moves in the first couple of laps that I overtook him. And then, yeah, I just put my head down and tried to put my head down and pull away.
Yeah, we were all nervous about those first few laps because we knew that the 5 of you were going to be battling each other, but also having to survive all of the typical race 2 shenanigans. There was a big pile-up out on the Grand Prix circuit, but it almost looked like you were a couple of cars ahead of everybody else in the championship fight anyway. So that kind of gave you that initial edge, allowed you to get to the front first. So your start and your first couple of corners, you clearly nailed.
Yeah, no, we got quite a good start, and I saw, just as we went across the line on the first lap, I saw everyone go to the inside, and I was like, oh, I'll try the outside. It's either going to work or it's not. And it worked. And then I ended up going 3 wide with, I think, Andy Dorman and an Audi going into Graham Hill Bend, and I thought, oh no, here we go. And then on the exit, I just saw 4 or 5 cars in the middle of the road, 2 in the grass, and I was like, just go straight, you'll be fine. And then, yeah, I managed to get up to about 5th, I think, on the first lap, so that was good. And then Kenny made a mistake, and I overtook him. And thank you to a couple of the guys, because they sort of moved out the way for me as well.
Well, second place in the championship is not bad at all, Scott. It's been a fantastic effort from you. 3 race wins as well, a whole load of podiums, only missing out by 4 points. You've got to be satisfied overall with how things have gone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The car, you know, sort of midway through the season, the weight really wasn't liking. I wasn't liking the car, how it was handling. And when I dropped down to sort of 3rd in the championship, Imola, I sort of got the pace back that I had originally. So, yeah, it was good. You know, it wasn't quite enough, but well done to Josh and the other guys as well, because it was good racing, and I really enjoyed it.
We have thoroughly enjoyed watching it as well, Scott, and a huge thank you to you for all of the efforts you put in over the course of the season, and a huge congratulations on that second place. The runners-up prize, provisionally at least, is heading your way.
Thank you very much.
So Scott Bugner then rounds his season out with a 3rd race win, misses out narrowly on the championship, but actually heads a 1-2 finish in the race for the LB Motorsport squad, and Jack is able now to catch up with the second part of that 1st-second combination.
Yeah, Joel, we heard 2 accusations from your teammate there. One of them, did you do it on purpose, dropping a wheel into the entry of one of the corners?
No, I actually lost that. It was a little bit frustrating because I was going to keep him on his toes and scare him a little bit. But yeah, no, it wasn't on purpose. It wasn't on purpose.
I was going to say, your answer there, though, it does sort of solidify his other accusation. Did you push him a little bit? Were you trying to have a look of his inside outside? Were you starting to make him sweat the first couple of corners?
Of course it was. And then about 3 or 4 corners later, I started to see him outbreak himself, which was funny. I was just laughing. It was good fun. I knew he was getting scared by it, but no. To be honest, I was gonna battle with him. Like, if the opportunity was there, I would have made the move. But I'm not gonna ruin a championship over it. So yeah, I followed along after that.
You already have.
I was going to say that's the sort of thing we like to hear from teammates, though. A little bit of bite and everything like that. At the end of the day, you want to beat your teammates and everything like that. But when you start to see in your rearview mirror, a few of the drivers, the fight for second potentially starting to be on in terms of Josh Martin and the rest of the field, did you start thinking, okay, good teammates at this point, or were you taking that second purely from a selfish point of view once again?
To be honest, I thought, gee, Scott needs to hurry up a little bit. He's slowing down. We're about half a second quicker than him. He was bottlenecking us, but no. To be honest, if Josh had come up alongside me, I wouldn't have got in the way of it. I was still racing my own race at the end of the day, but I wasn't gonna get in the way of the championship if he'd have made the move. But it's tough to overtake around here, and I was quick out of the corners, so yeah, he struggled with that a little bit, I think.
Well, fair enough. Joel, congratulations on a second place and 6th place in the championship as well. I think you're the one driver tonight in the top 6 who didn't move, which I know is probably not the plaudit you want. But yeah, equally, a still solid championship from yourself. And hopefully we'll see you back next time round for the GTV3.
Yeah. With a bit of luck, and let's see if I can T-bone my teammate again.
Well, it's, of course, there's the NASCAR special events where T-boning, if anything, is encouraged. Well, from my point of view, probably not Richard's. So, yeah, hopefully we'll see you next year.
Yeah, no worries. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Yeah, just do what the NASCAR drivers do. Wait till we're racing at Bristol and just get all of your frustration out there. That's what I recommend. Big thank you to both of the teammates. They've been great sports all season long, but it is about time that we spoke to our provisional champion in the VRRC Touring Car Championship. As we've said, he came into tonight's racing 5th in the points, furthest back of any of the championship contenders, but with a lights to flag win in race 1 and a fabulous drive from the back of the field to a podium in race 2. It looks as though the championship is going the way of Josh Martin. Josh, how are you feeling?
God, it was mega. I didn't expect that one bit. I was quite surprised at the end of race 1 because I was still in the commentary box, and then you guys then said at the end of my interview that I was first in the championship, and it was like, wait, what? So yeah, it was very definitely unexpected to get to win it overall. But yeah, mega.
Well done, Josh.
Cheers.
Hello. Yeah, go on, actually, Rich. I'll bring you in at this point because I'm sure you'd like to offer your congratulations to our champion as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Well done, Josh. That's a fantastic final round from you. You've been lurking in the background and coming on strong at the back end of every race, but you really pulled it out of the bag there. So well done, mate.
Yeah, cheers. That was a chaotic race. This track is so hard to overtake on. I was stuck behind Nicky for a long time at the start, and then I had Kyle right behind me, so trying to pass Nicky without Kyle coming by, which then he did. Then I had to get back past Kyle, and then but that gave me that gap then to go for the fastest lap, which was, I think, probably quite important. I don't know how big the gap was, but I think those 3 points, both fastest laps, probably made the difference. And yeah, and then Nicky, I was able to overtake him by doing something I had tried before. And then Joel, I didn't quite have I was going to go for it because I had no idea I was in the championship, but I couldn't quite get a good run on him on the last few laps.
Interesting, actually, because Andy and Jack were talking about whether you had Dave doing some spotting for you and calling you up during the race, but no, you were really good there, mate, and you're a great champion. So well done.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, me and Dave, we did try some spotting at the first round, I believe, but with the slight stream delay and whatever else, I was seeing things before he was seeing them. So just went back to doing it on my own.
You won the championship in the end by 4 points. Those bonus points really did make all the difference because you took all 7 of those bonus points here tonight. So was that always kind of in the back of your mind that they could be the thing that decided it? Because the points were so tight that, 3 points for a fastest lap could be what made the difference.
Yes, I knew after the practice of this track that I had some really good pace over one lap for whatever reason. So I did have in the back of my mind that normally I don't even think about the fastest laps, but I had in the back of my mind like today that I needed to go for them. And I think my fastest lap in race 1 was quicker than my qualifying time. So yeah, I was today I went for them. But yeah, I don't normally.
Proved to be the winning strategy in the end, so that was good thinking indeed. It all worked out perfectly for you. We've also decided, we can't remember actually whether you've already had this award this season or not, but there is no more worthy a driver to receive the Driver of the Round award for this week as well, so that's heading to you, as well as the 34-inch gaming display courtesy of our championship sponsors Aegon. So yeah, not a bad evening's work, mate.
Cheers, that's mega.
Josh Martin, then provisionally your VRRC Touring Car Championship champion. We will get the full confirmation of that in the coming days after the post-event judicial procedures have been undertaken. But for now, a huge congratulations to Josh. And Rich, whilst we've got you here, I mean, to try and sum up everything that we've seen over the last 8 weeks would be impossible. But this has been, for me, my favourite championship I've covered on the VRRC. I think it has been, objectively speaking, the most successful one that we've had for a long time as well. You really did manage to hit gold this time, didn't you?
Look, it's not me, it's the drivers that have done it. We put together a championship. We try and make everything as equal as possible. And obviously we try and give the faster guys some hindrance with success and handicap ballast. And we try and put some decent tracks together, but it's the drivers that have made it. They've been so close at the front. The point system that we employ here actually helps us with close championships, but they've exchanged race wins, seconds and thirds all the way through them, and it's just been fantastic. I'm so pleased for them, and hopefully they all enjoyed it as well.
We've been joking with you all season, Rich, that you've been, or someone has been writing the script to this championship in the background. Did you see that coming tonight? Did you think that Josh had what it took to come and steal it?
Look, I always know any of those top 5 could have taken it. Absolutely, they're so talented. But there's one thing about Josh is that he comes on strong at the end. We've been saying it all the way through the championship, haven't we? Each race, towards the end of the race, he's coming on strong. So for him to come on strong at the end of the championship, we should have expected that, right?
That's a good point, actually. Yes, that does seem to be his trait, doesn't it? And he is a hugely deserving champion. Rich, we'll probably chat to you in a moment or two about what's coming up here at the VRRC. But Jack, I think we can now show everyone at home the provisional championship table at the end of the season.
Yeah, we can indeed. And look at that. We've already said it about 50,000 times, but we're going to say it again because it's worth saying. Josh Martin with 272 points, 4 points a champion ahead of Scott Bugner, who did do everything he could in that second race. He can't do any more than win it. That's exactly what Scott Bugner did, but it wasn't good enough to upset Josh. Nicky Taylor ended up in 3rd place, and he'll take, of course, that 24-inch Aegon by AOC gaming display. Carl Felthers ended up outside of the top 3 and outside of the prizes, can you believe it, even though he was second going into the final race. The only reason why he's below Nicky Taylor is because of those race wins. Carl Felthers had 3, Nicky Taylor had 4, we believe. Eric Axelson ended up in 5th, the lowest he's been for quite some time, actually, in a championship, but that doesn't mean he didn't exactly do a bad job. It just shows how close this one particularly was. Joel Lask is in 6th with Andy Dorman, Andy Carroll, the 2 Andys in 7th and 8th with Elliot Dalton-Ayres ended up in 9th. I don't even believe Elliot actually took part in the last 2 rounds, so still a good showing from him to be in the top 10. Paolo Tempera finished just within the top 10. And then we also had a fair few other drivers obviously joining us throughout the season. One driver that I did notice, actually, and I wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to, where is he? Jack Smith in 13th place, 135. I don't think he participated in the last couple of rounds and still finished ahead of Oliver Gibson. I'm not trying to rub that one into Oliver Gibson, but they are brothers, and I'm sure Jack Smith would probably enjoy that one.
Yeah, definitely so. There have been some cracking drives actually from drivers who haven't necessarily featured at the very front of the championship, either because they didn't do the full season or they had perhaps a couple of bad nights throughout the season. But a huge thank you to all of the drivers for making this championship what it was. I absolutely echo the sentiments of Rich Hayden that it is the drivers who have put on this show, and we thank them for that. Now, Rich, the drivers are going to continue to put on a show for us because we've got some very exciting things coming up in the near future. Our next championship is going to be starting in a few weeks' time. We've got a bit of a break until the start of February, but we're moving from front-wheel drive touring cars to rear-wheel drive GT cars.
Yeah, can't wait. I'm really looking forward to this. These cars drive like a dream. We've been doing so much work in the background, as you know, Andy and Jack and Lewis. You know, we've all been involved in doing a lot of testing on these cars and getting them to handle well. I mean, they handled really well to start with, but we've just taken it to the next level. Everything's very even. The lap times between them are within 0.1 of a second on numerous different circuits. So I'm really excited about these cars being just as equal as the touring cars, but they are a lot more powerful, rear wheel drive, and look at those circuits we're going to go to as well. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, a proper international tour of circuits really known for this kind of racing. We start at the Sakhir circuit in Bahrain on the 1st of February. Then we head to the Temple of Speed itself, Monza in Italy, Istanbul Park in Turkey for round 3. Then Kyalami towards the end of February will be the host for our 4th round. And the second half of the season, America's Watkins Glen. Then we head to Fuji in Japan and indeed the Suzuka circuit in Japan, a Japanese doubleheader. Before once again, not saying we're biased here at the VRRC, but ending at another classic British circuit and the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. That's going to be one not to be missed. Get your entries in if you're interested in getting involved. Rich, where do people need to go if they want to come and race with us?
Look, go on our website and go to Racing with VRRC on the website, and all the information's there. We are 2/3 full on the grid at the moment with just over a month to go, so it's proving quite popular. But also a little fun fact for you, the Temple of Speed Monza is the only track where I've won a race at when I've been driving in championships. I've only ever won at Monza, and what that says about my driving style: in a straight line, brake, in a straight line, brake. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be epic.
There we go then. Wild card entry for Rich Hayden at round 2, all but confirmed. You heard it here first. Jack, not only racing action coming up here at the VRRC, but the time attack as well has been given a bit of a revamp, and our first round is going to be starting very shortly.
It is indeed, yes. And although we're waiting for the official championship to wait until February, we're not messing around with a few of the special events and the time attack, as Andy has just said. We are going for a front-wheel drive theme towards our time attack to start with. We sort of played around with changing the cars up, but basing it around a certain theme when we did the F1 series. However, we made a little bit more streamlined, a little bit shorter, shall we say, and we're only going for a 4-round time attack. Fiat Abarth to start with, around Vella Lunga even. Audi TT's a little bit quicker around the Oschersleben. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I'm just going with it. Round 3 will be in the Mid JCW. Yet again, a little bit quicker. You're starting to see a theme here around Alton Park, the island circuit. That is the one the most touring cars use, and probably, arguably, a lot of people would say the better one of the 3 or 4 that they've got in layouts. And then round 4, the Cupra TCR, the fastest of the lot, the one that you've seen quite often here at the VRRC, without hybrid, however, around the Valencia Street Circuit on the 20th of February. So all of them run for about 2 weeks, and then we switch it up. And we've got a whole year's worth of time attacks all planned out as well. But we're not going to tell you about them until we get round to each and every one. Not only do we have the time attacks, not only do we have the GTV3, but you know that we've got more up our sleeve here at VRRC, and we're starting in January. I believe we might have a week off. I'm saying that without knowing anything. No, I'm incorrect. That's that's fairly usual by now. We're off to Daytona for a NASCAR special event, 3-race special event, of course. Off to Daytona first, then the Auto Club Speedway, and then off to Bristol Motor Speedway as well, one after each other. So if you think you're going to get withdrawal symptoms from mine and Andy's wonderful voices, and of course all the weird action that's going out on circuit, then by all means you can tune in next week for more action from across the pond and a slightly different series.
I'm rather looking forward to that, I have to say, and that is going to be starting on the 4th of January. Again, if you want to get involved in that, then you can do so. I believe most of the VRRC regulars are going to be on the grid for that one as well, and it all starts, as we've said, at the World Centre of Racing at Daytona on the 4th of January. Right, I think that's just about it. I need to go and have a lie down in a darkened room after that, Jack. That was a brilliant, a suitably brilliant end to what has been a fantastic championship. We've got a deserving champion in Josh Martin. I think everyone can leave happy tonight. We all kind of got what we wanted out of that.
Exactly, yeah. It was thrilling from start to finish. Like I said, it was nice to see the top 5 in the championship finishing race 1 all in the top 5. That means it kept it exciting for race 2. And again, all 6 of the top 6 in the championship finished in the top 6 in the race. Exactly. You couldn't ask for a better finale. You couldn't ask for a better championship.
Absolutely. One last chance to say a big thank you as well to everyone who helps put these events together. Lewis Edwards, who's done a fantastic job on the broadcasts all season long, to Jack Oliphant for putting up with me for the majority of the season, and to Rich Hayden for masterminding the whole thing, watching you. We hope that you will all be back to see the racing action in a week's time at Daytona. We hope you all also have a brilliant new year, whatever it is you're getting up to. We will see you all in a week's time.
Woo!